Podcast City Network. What is up, guys? Welcome to episode 135 of the Nest podcast. It's your boy Brandon coming on here live, talking about the NL Central this week. Of course, you may notice if you're watching live, my regular co-host Zach is not on yet. He's running a little bit late, but don't worry, he'll be on here in a little bit. Today, we're going to be talking about what's going on in spring training for the NL Central and what we're seeing from around the league and around some of these teams. I've been enjoying watching the Red Sox play. As you see, I've got the Red Sox cap on my head. I'm loving watching the young core, but I've been very excited to see Eduardo Rodriguez come back from his COVID season last year. You know, he was diagnosed with myocarditis, and he came out. He pitched 3 innings in spring training, gave up a bomb, but he looked pretty good, all things considering. I'm excited to see them go a little bit further and see what happens with him. But tonight, we're talking NL Central. We've got some great guests on tonight. We've got from the Friendly Confines podcast, Mr. Ryan Lieber, and from Locked On Cardinals, we have Lucas Smith. So, guys, welcome to the Nest podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having me, Brandon. Good to be here.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's great to have you guys. You know, I told you before we came on, my co-host is a Cardinals fan, and he's all up to date on the NL Central and all that stuff. So I'm just going to try to wing it until he gets on here and can fill in a little bit. But you know, I told you guys that I wanted to talk about it, so let's do that. But before we get into any of that, why don't you guys go ahead and plug your shows? Let everybody know where they can find you and what you guys do on a regular basis. Whoever wants to go first, Ryan, if you want to take the lead on that one, go for it.
Sure. So my name is Ryan Lieber. I am the co-host of the Friendly Confines podcast. It's a Chicago Cubs podcast, and we release episodes once a week. You can find us on all podcast platforms where you get them, Spotify, Apple, anywhere else that you would go to get them. Basically, the format of our show is we do 9 topics, which we call innings. And then in the 7th inning, we call it the 7th inning stretch. It's got a little bit of a PTI vibe to it. And each week we bring on a special guest. Some of our guests have included Andre Dawson. We've gotten Len Casper, Pat Hughes. And it's not just in the realm of Cubs baseball. We've had Carl Ravitch on our show, Sarah Spain, Michael Wilbon has joined us, even Willie Geist from the Today Show. So we really try to get some big names to join us each week with a Chicago flavor to it, and obviously with that Cubs edge. So be sure to check us out if you're a big Cubs fan, or even if you're a baseball fan. We encourage you to check out the Friendly Confines podcast, and you can find me on Twitter at Ryan D. Lieber, and you can go to our Facebook page, which is the Chicago Cubs Friendly Confines Facebook page.
Wow, that's pretty awesome. You've had quite the guest list on there. It's amazing. Lucas, go ahead. Tell us where we can find you.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, my name is Lucas, host of Locked On Cardinals. It's a daily podcast, episodes Monday through Friday, pretty much either released post-game or morning, depending on the scenario, but anywhere from 20 to 25 minutes, so not super long, but yeah, just keeping you up to date on all the Cardinals news. I've had guests in the past, Cardinal beat writers. Zach Silver has been on there in the past, as well as athletic guys. Mark Saxon, who used to write for The Athletic as well, has been on the show. But yeah, so it's pretty much just Cardinal baseball talk Monday to Friday, as much as we can get. It's been super exciting to be a part of this network since August. My network has a show for every team. So if you don't like the Cardinals, you can still go to the network and.
Yeah, our listeners have actually
at LO_Cardinals, and then I'm on Twitter at LJ Fastball.
Gotcha. Yeah, you kind of cut out there for a second, but you ended up getting the Twitter handles in there.
Good deal.
Our listeners have grown quite accustomed to hearing the Locked On shows because I was telling you before we came on, 2 weeks ago we had Locked On Dodgers and Locked On Padres, and last week we had Locked On Yankees represented on the show. So we're making our way around the league on the Locked On network. So hopefully we can do a little bit more collabing throughout the season and continue to merge our audiences a little bit.
Absolutely.
Thank you guys both for being here so much. It's going to be a lot of fun. I want to kick things off starting talking about the Cubs. You know, they came out today and they announced that pretty much all the Chicago teams are going to have 20% capacity. Ryan, is that exciting for you? Are you going to get to go to Wrigley at all this season?
I certainly hope so. I would like to go if I can. Yeah, they announced it today that it's going to be at about 20% for Wrigley fans to come in. So that equates to about 8,200 fans on opening day until that, number increases. Look, it's a first step, right? It's an opportunity for fans to get back into the ballpark, kind of get that normalcy going again. And so this way fans don't have to just necessarily sit in the rooftops like they were last year for the few times they were able to do that. But no, this is nice. It's a step in the right direction. We're already seeing it in spring training. So yeah, my hope is that I'll get the opportunity to at least attend a couple of games this year if possible. And, I actually live in South Florida. So wow. I go to see the Marlins play quite a bit when the Cubs are in town. That's usually my main chance of when I get to see the Cubs. So hopefully I'll be able to do that in both places this year and go to, see the Cubs on the road and definitely be able to go see them in Chicago too.
I certainly understand that. I'm also a Florida resident. I live in Northeast Florida, and I travel across the state to Tampa whenever the Red Sox are playing the Rays. So I definitely get that, and I understand it completely. I do hope that I can make it up to Boston sometime this year, but I know tickets with only 20% capacity, I'm sure that's the same in Wrigley, are going to be ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that the fans are chomping at the bit, right? I think anybody that gets the opportunity to go to a game is going to be really excited. In fact, ironically enough, I live about 20 minutes outside of Jupiter, Florida, where the Cardinals have spring training. So I actually got to go to the game yesterday when the Cardinals played the Astros. And that was literally the first sporting event I attended in exactly a year. So it was cool. I mean, I got to wore a mask. The seats were obviously spread out. It was limited capacity, but at least it felt like you were watching baseball live again in the sense that, you're in the park, you're able to enjoy the contest in the game. And obviously it's a little different, but you know what? It's the world we live in today. And hopefully it's just another step in the right direction that allows us to enjoy sports again.
Absolutely. Limited seating and all that stuff is just a minor inconvenience compared to last season whenever spring training was stopped and we didn't even have baseball for the majority of the summer. So I'll take the limited seating and wearing a mask if I get to watch the game. Let's talk about some of the moves that the Cubs made in the offseason. Jock Peterson coming over from the Dodgers was one of the big ones. How do you think he's going to play in the lineup, and how do you think that's going to push the Cubs to go forward?
Yeah, well, the offseason, I'm sure, Brandon, is more about what the Cubs didn't do as opposed to what they did do, right? Or who they got rid of. But Jock Peterson was kind of the big name that they signed in the offseason. And really, if you think about it, they got rid of Kyle Schwarber and brought in Jock Peterson. If you look at their numbers, you're basically looking at the same player. They both hit a lot of home runs. They strike out a lot. They're both left-handed hitters, and they both play the same position. So, you can say what you'd like as far as did the Cubs get the better end of getting, a better player in Peterson than they did in Schwarber. It's maybe just kind of like, right now, even Steven at this point. But the one thing I'll say about Jock Peterson is, if you remember in the postseason last year when the Dodgers won the World Series, he had an incredible postseason. So hopefully that'll carry over into the regular season of this year. He's having a solid spring, but it'd be nice. He's on that 1-year deal. He signed a friendly contract. Yep. He wanted to start. He got more money actually from the White Sox, but he wanted the opportunity to play every day, and the Cubs are giving him that chance. So with that 1-year deal, he's going to be hungry, and he's going to really want to put up some big numbers. So hopefully this will be a good opportunity for him to do that, and it'll be to the Cubs' benefit.
Yeah, you got to like whenever those players get in that bet on myself mode, because a lot of times they end up having those breakout seasons. Like one of the commenters said, you let Lester walk. He's now playing for another team. It is what it is. He might not even be playing this year because of the thyroid issue and all that. So maybe that was a blessing in disguise, but you did get to welcome back Jake Arrieta. How do you think Jake's going to do? And do you think that coming home to Chicago is going to give him that spark that he didn't have in Philly?
Sure. Yeah. Well, listen, I know the fans are excited, and this was the move that I think everybody got the most excited about with everything else that the Cubs did in the offseason as far as unloading or not signing or re-signing players. Jake certainly is not Jake Arrieta from 2015 or 2016, but I think most fans are realistic in seeing that, he's 34 years old now. If you can get 30 starts, close to 200 innings, and an ERA in the maybe high threes, I think you're looking at a guy, and hopefully getting 10 to 12 wins. I think you're looking at a situation where Cub fans are going to be happy. I think he's going to be probably the number 2 starter behind Kyle Hendricks, because he kind of gives them a different look than the other off-speed pitchers like the Zach Davies and the Alec Mills and the Albert Azoleys that the Cubs have, who really aren't, big-time flamethrowers, if you will. Jake kind of is the one guy that has pretty high velocity and throws hard fastballs. Kyle Hendricks obviously is more of a breaking ball kind of pitcher as well. So he gives you a different look. And I think we'll see him more at the top of rotation. Had his first start on Sunday. He looked okay, 2 innings, gave up 1 hit, didn't allow any runs. Obviously, you want to see that progress. But, I think he's going to be the big story for Cub fans this year, and they're certainly excited, to say the least.
Yeah, absolutely. Lucas messaged us in the private chat during that and said that he was at Jake Arrieta's last loss in 2015, which was the Cole Hamels no-no. So that's pretty significant. I've never actually gotten to be at a no-no in person, so that's pretty cool that you got to see that.
Yeah, that was a blast.
Yeah, I bet. What's the deal with Pedro Strop?
Well, Pedro signed a minor league deal. He was released by the Reds last season. He came back to the Cubs at the end of 2020. Listen, again, another guy who fans absolutely adore, and it would be great to see Pedro make this team. I don't know if he will. If anything, I think the Cubs would probably release him if he doesn't and not put him back in the minors, because, you want to give him at least the opportunity to either sign with another team, or if he just decides enough's enough, that's on him. I'd love for him to recapture that magic that he's had in the past, but it seemed like in 2020 and, of course, in 2019, he didn't seem like the same pitcher. It starts to sound like age is catching up with him, and just wasn't able to throw the types of pitches that he was in the past. So I hope he can at least make an attempt to make the team, but I'm not holding out too much hope that Pedro Strup's going to be on this opening day roster.
Well, for a guy that's trying to make a team, he's not making a very good impression right now, because he just recently violated the COVID protocols and all that stuff. So he's in a bit of hot water there as well. So not looking good for him. We got a question coming in from one of the viewers. What do you think about Bryant? Is he going to end up getting traded?
That's obviously the $1 million question, right? I mean, there's been so much talk in the offseason of whether or not Chris Bryant was going to go. Insert team here, right? The Blue Jays, the Mets, the Colorado Rockies, the Dodgers, whoever, the Angels. When it's all said and done, this is one of the questions we actually posed in the podcast in this week's episode. What's more important for the Cubs this year? Is it July 2021 or is it October 2021? And the reason I use those 2 dates is it because is it more about the trading deadline, or is it more about the playoffs? Mm-hmm. And we could see a situation where if Bryant's having a really good year, but the Cubs are just not in the race, then maybe it's time to trade him. Or if he's still struggling and the Cubs aren't in the race, maybe it's time to move on as well. I don't think Chris Bryant will be in a Cubs uniform next year. If I were a betting man, I'd say the guys that they're going to sign long-term, because you got to remember, Rizzo's a free agent, Bryant's a free agent, and Javi Baez is a free agent. And I don't think the Cubs have enough to sign all three to big contracts, especially Javi and Bryant, who are going to want long-term deals. So I think Rizzo, who's going to sign more of a shorter deal and less money, is going to be the one guy who signs. And then I think Javi's really the one that they're going to look to sign as well. So for me, I unfortunately think this might be the end of an era, and Chris Bryant could be on his way out of town before the season's over.
I agree with you. I think using those two specific dates are very, very important, because, if like you said, if he's having a hot season, but the Cubs have fallen off, he is perfect for trading away, getting some good chips back to build for the future. I'm a Red Sox fan. You're a Cubs fan. So we have a few commonalities in our teams, mainly that Theo Epstein helped break a notable curse for both of our teams. And now we both cheer for teams that are previously general managed by Theo. Another little commonality is that after Theo's tenure, Jed Hoyer took over in both capacities. So what do you think Jed is going to be able to do for the Cubs now that he's the man in charge?
Well, I think a lot depends, Brandon, on, what are the Ricketts who own the Chicago Cubs going to allow Jed Hoyer to do? And because of COVID and because of what other investments that the Ricketts have put into Wrigleyville. So the Ricketts, if you're not familiar, they went ahead and they bought up all this real estate around Wrigley Field. They built a hotel, restaurants. They've now own several buildings in that area. And because of what has happened during COVID, they have lost billions of dollars. And they're not willing to pay out of their own pockets right now, and which is why we've seen more of a salary dump from the Cubs this offseason to put that back into the organization. And so also, in addition, with the Cubs now having this marquee sports network, which is their own personal network, that has not gotten the dividends in their first year because of COVID, like they anticipated, like the Yankees get with the Yes Network, so to speak, and they get so much money back. So I think this is going to be kind of a slow build. If the Ricketts decide that they're going to open up the purse a little bit more and the Cubs are going to be able to spend money in the next several years, well, then, yeah, I think it's going to be an easier job for Jed. But I think what's even more important is Jed has to rebuild the farm system. And the way he's going to do that is obviously he might have to, as we mentioned before, trade guys like Chris Bryant or other guys who are already starting for this team to rebuild the pitching staff in the minor leagues, to get better position players, and to build through the farm system. Because as we all know, minor leagues and the farm systems for any team in baseball has really become so much more crucial than it has over the past 20 years. We've seen in the past, free agency was such a big way for teams to win championships. Now you see so many teams blow it all up, rebuild from the ground up. We saw it with the Astros, we saw it with the Cubs, and just restart from the from the ground up. So I think the farm system is really the most crucial piece of what Jed Hoyer has to focus on if the Cubs are going to try to get back to becoming a contender and try to win another World Series.
I agree 100%. And that's just another commonality between the Cubs and the Red Sox, is because that's what our new GM, or president of baseball operations, the pretentious title that he has, Chaim Bloom, that's what he's doing. He's rebuilding the farm. And that's why you saw the Mookie Betts trade. That's why you saw the Andrew Benintendi trade, things like that. Chicago Cubs are the Boston Red Sox Central. That's kind of a funny comment. It's true.
Wrong. You might not be wrong with that.
You have David Ross and all that stuff going on too. So John Lester pitched there for a while. So it is what it is. But let's talk a little bit about the Cardinals. They made a huge offseason splash by going out and getting Nolan Arenado. Tell me your reaction, Lucas, whenever you heard that Nolan was officially coming to St. Louis.
It was one of those things that I almost had pinched myself. Nolan Arenado, yes, he's coming off of a down year maybe, but this is something that the Cardinals have been talking about for probably an offseason and a half now, of trying to get Nolan. And whenever, Ken Rosenthal sent out the tweet a week before it became official, and I was like, whatever, I'm not going to listen to it. It is what it is. It's just noise. And then when it got real, it was like, whoa, Like, we have, probably one of the top 5 first and third basemen now on the Cardinals team. And there's not a whole lot Nolan Arenado doesn't do for this lineup, both offensively and defensively. The Cardinals probably now have 2 of the best first and third basemen on the team, and it just makes them more of a legit playoff threat. Because before that, the NL Central, everybody was leaving the Central and nobody was coming to the Central, so they were probably the favorites. But now with Arenado, they're definitely more of a favorite, not only to win the Central, but to go on and they could get hot and make a threat in the postseason as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. The only thing that really stinks about the Cardinals offseason was the fact that you weren't able to lock up Colton Wong, because then you would have gold gloves all around the infield there. But I'll take the 4 platinums from Nolan.
Yeah, that was definitely something that the fan base was really upset with, just because they fell in love with Colton Wong. He was definitely a fan favorite. He had a lot of big moments after that. It all went up after that pickoff attempt for him in 2013. But yeah, so it was really tough for the fan base to see him leave.
Oh, you're referring to the pickoff that ended the game in 2013?
Yeah, with the best hitter at the plate at the 9th inning, down by 1. I'm not salty about it. It's fine. Like, it is what it is. But
don't sleep on Koji Uehara, man. He had that pickoff move.
I have nightmares.
A lot of people think because he only threw like 89 to the plate that he really wouldn't be able to zip one to first, but he picked off a lot of batters. The only time I turned a game off quicker than that was Game 6 whenever the Cardinals lost. But that game was off quickly when that pickoff move was thrown. I was done. That's about how I felt whenever was it Alan Craig that they had that whole debacle around third base. I was like, what is this is Bush League, but that was years ago, so it is what it is.
Yeah.
You guys did bring back Molina and Waino for another season. You think this is the final rodeo for those two?
Yeah, Wainwright, they kind of called them, Mozilla called them the legacy players. This was one of their goals pretty much from the get-go. And it was kind of a problem, if you will, because they seemed to be putting a lot of emphasis on bringing them back, that it was holding them back from going after other guys. Arenado wasn't a Cardinal until Wainwright was signed. And then Wainwright kind of hinted at it in his press conference, or Zoom conference, if you will, of like, yeah, I think the Cardinals might do something here. And then like 3 or 4 days later, Arenado's a Cardinal. So I definitely think that it was seen as a negative before, of like, they're taking so long, they're not able to make that jump, and then they get Arenado, and pretty much all was forgiven for about a week and a half. People just forgot about any problems that they had. But yeah, I think that it's good to see them not only back in the Cardinal uniform, but the fact that they're back together. It wouldn't have been right if Waino was back without Yachty, or vice versa. So and Wainwright has looked really good this spring training. He's probably been the most consistent pitcher. He struck out 5 yesterday in his spring training outing. So he looks like the Adam Wainwright of old in what might be his final season. So, and Yachty threw out a base runner yesterday after daring the runner to steal. Did you guys see that?
Yeah, I saw that clip.
Yeah. So it's definitely some exciting times.
If I can just jump in for a second, the funny part is I didn't see the back and forth. I obviously saw the pickoff, the attempted pickoff, and then when he went for second and Yachty just gunned him, I said, well, he still got it.
On a changeup. It was not even close. Yeah.
So I've noticed that Harrison Bader, he's been a little banged up this spring. They're saying that it's a forearm injury, but it's not that serious. What do you know about it? Have you heard anything other than that? Or, is this something that could potentially keep him out to start the season?
They're not that concerned about it. They've been calling it, the terminology that Mike Schilt has been using, is that his forearm has been barking. That's the kind of the lingo that they've used, of just kind of that the spring training game tomorrow to start again. So they're not too concerned about it. So I'm not too concerned about it at this point. It's just a small little beginning of the spring training injury. So if he's not back tomorrow, he'll be back middle of this week. I'm not concerned about it.
Yeah, I read somewhere earlier today when I was preparing my notes that he was at least taking some BP and all that. He's just not really throwing as much right now.
Right.
He came out and made a statement that said that he's trying to win the Gold Glove this season. Do you think it's possible for Harrison Bader to win a Gold Glove in center field?
Without a doubt. I think he, when you look at the metrics, and I don't have any of them pulled up right now, but he is one of the best defensive center fielders in baseball, and I have no problem in saying that. For as many problems that we give him offensively, defensively, there's no question in the ability he has.
I personally think that there's a new center fielder in the NL Central that might give him a run for his money that just happened to sign with the Milwaukee Brewers, but we'll get to him in a few minutes.
Fair point.
Tyler O'Neill or Lane Thomas. Who do you have starting in left field on opening day?
You know what? I talked about that on my podcast today, so this is great. I think it's Lane Thomas. He had a double today it's Tyler O'Neill. Tyler O'Neill. He had a double today and a home run yesterday, and he's the guy that's been penciled in there. It's just a matter of battling it out, and I just think he won the Gold Glove last year. And if the offense can come around, he's got light tower power. It's just been a matter of if he can put it together. So I think because of that power, the combination of power, speed, and defense, Thomas is probably lacking the power there. So I think that Tyler O'Neill gets to start, and I've been really impressed with him this spring. I said on my podcast today that he's going to impress some people, and he's going to give the Cardinals some production in left field that they haven't had in a long time.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that the opening day outfield dynamics will be O'Neill, Bader, and Dylan Carlson in right. That's what it's looking like for me.
Yeah, it's got the potential to be an electric outfield. We got young guys for the most part, especially Carlson. He hasn't had a full season yet. He's still listed as a prospect, but he's going to be starting this year. So it's definitely got some high upside with the athletic ability of all three of those guys. There aren't going to be too many balls dropping in the outfield if those three are there. So they can all cover a lot of ground.
With all the talk that's been going on with the Cardinals infield, I wanted to give a little shine to the outfield tonight as well. So had to talk about those guys. But we mentioned it. I alluded to it a little bit. The Milwaukee Brewers signed Jackie Bradley Jr., who is probably one of the best center fielders of his generation. The only problem is, like O'Neill, he's not really been that big of a threat with the bat. That's always been the big, I guess, hatred from the Red Sox fans, was that he wasn't able to really string it together at the plate. He's a career 239 hitter that he gets streaky at times, and he'll go on a run of, a 2-week stretch where he's on fire. I mean, that ALCS in 2018, he was the ALCS MVP. He belted like 3-4 home runs during that series. He was just lights out, but then he just loses it all and doesn't get a hit for like a month and a half. So that's what you get with Jackie Bradley at the plate, but in the field, every day is something spectacular. So I said that he may be somebody that gives Harrison Bader a run for his money. What do you guys think about that signing going to Milwaukee?
Yeah, I think that he definitely makes them more of a threat. I still think the Cardinals are the favorite. Gabrielle Starr, who's the host of Locked On Red Sox, also loves Jackie Bradley Jr. So if you're able to get her on, you guys will have a good time talking about Bradley Jr. But it definitely makes them more of a threat. I think that outfield is pretty dangerous now when you've got Lorenzo Cain coming back along with Christian Yelich, who he's not going to hit like that again. He's going to come back and beat Christian Yelich, just of how dreadful he was in 2020. That's a pretty dangerous outfield. I don't know how Ryan's feeling, but I think that's a pretty dangerous lineup to go through now.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree with you, Lucas. I actually have the Brewers finishing in second place in the NL Central. I think offensively, Yelich is going to bounce back. There's
right.
Absolutely no chance he's going to have the season that he had last year. And yeah, that outfield is going to be dangerous. And as you mentioned, while Jackie Bradley Jr. maybe not with the bat is as strong, I'm curious how he's going to do in the National League comparatively as how he's done previously in the American League. Maybe he'll be a little bit of a better hitter. I don't know. I'm curious how that'll work for him. But defensively, yeah, certainly it's going to be a lot of balls that are going to be taken away for extra base hits or even singles for that matter. So I like the Brewers, and I think the Wong signing was really solid for them. I really do think that's a nice move that'll ultimately help them as well. And if you looked at the PECOTA standings that came out a couple of weeks ago, they're high on the Brewers too. I mean, they think they're going to win the NL Central, which I was pretty shocked about. I have them in second. I have them, behind the Cardinals. So I do think it'll be a bounce back year for Yelich and that team.
Yeah, I just want to say real quick, I thought the PECOTA projections were crap. I was not a fan of those, and not just because the Cardinals got 76 wins, but there's no way all NL Central teams finished under 500 if I'm thinking of the right projections, but I thought they were really bad. I don't know. Those were my thoughts.
Yeah, no, Lucas, I tend to agree with you. I was shocked when I saw them. I I was like, you got to be kidding me! Like, there's
Yeah.
no way. Though, and they had the White Sox. I mean, just all over the place. All the teams that they predicted for certain records. I was just sitting there, and usually they're pretty right on. So
Right.
I didn't know what to make of it. I was pretty surprised by it, though, because and absolutely shocked at where they put the Cardinals for sure.
Yeah.
Coming off of last season, I don't think anybody knows how to properly assess anything anymore.
That's a good point.
Yep.
So, yeah, you guys mentioned Wong signed with the Brewers as well. So it seems like they're really trying to beef up that defense. Zach and I had previously talked about how back in 2019, when the Brewers lost to the Nationals in that wild card game, it was mainly because Yelich wasn't playing at that time. The ball was hit to right field and it was kind of booted, and that allowed the Nationals to go around and score the game-winning run. Eventually, they went on their postseason run to win it all. If Yelich had been playing at that exact moment, I don't think that happens. The Brewers go on and beat the Nationals in that game, and then who knows what we're talking about at this point. The Brewers with a better defense, Yelich comes back swinging the bat again, gets back to MVP form. I think you guys are onto something with them being one of the contenders there in the National League Central. I still think, like you, that the Cardinals probably edged them out a little bit, but definitely don't sleep on the Brewers.
Yeah, I think too with Jackie Bradley, not only in the NL, but Miller Park tends to be a more hitter-friendly park as well. Colton Wong hits well, so that's also something to keep in mind with Jackie Bradley.
Zach, welcome to the show, buddy. We're on with the guys from the Friendly Confines podcast, Ryan Lieber and Lucas Smith from Locked On Cardinals. Zach, we've already talked about the Cardinals and the Cubs, but do you have anything that you want to say about either of those squads?
Obviously, I'm excited for this season as a Cardinals fan. I cannot wait till the season starts. I can't wait to see what Nolan Arenado has to offer. Yeah, I'm excited. The big dark horse in the NL is obviously still the Dodgers, but this is a huge step forward, especially from last year when we were just, barely mediocre, barely 500. So I'm excited.
Yep. Well, let's go ahead and move on. Let's talk about the Cincinnati Reds a little bit. Luis Castillo, he's basically got to step up and be the ace of that staff now in the post-Bauer world that is the Cincinnati Reds. They haven't really done much that I've seen as far as transactions or anything like that to try to improve on what they did last year. So to me, they've got to be down at the bottom of one of the lowest ranked NL teams. In the NL Central, I've got them finishing in fourth. The Pirates are the lowly Pirates, but we'll talk about them a little bit. Have you guys seen anything that the Reds have done that have made you think like, oh, they might have something building there?
So I may be in the minority on this, but I actually think the Reds are going to be pretty sneaky good this year. I think, like you said, with Castillo stepping up and Sonny Gray, that team still has some pop in that lineup as well. I mean, you got a team with Joey Votto and Mike Moustakas and Nick Castellanos. I personally think I know this, and because this obviously is going to be a tell where I feel like the Cubs are going to finish, but I got the Reds finishing in third in the NL Central, and maybe that's just the pessimist Cub fan in me. But yeah, I know, Lucas, you look shocked, but I truly believe I think the Reds are better than most people are giving them credit for. So that's just my personal take. I could be absolutely wrong on that, but I think they could be sneaky good this year.
Lucas, do you agree with that, or do you think that they're going to be bottom of the barrel again?
It's not that I necessarily disagree, because I do agree that they've got some pop in that lineup. I like Castellanos in there a lot, the ex-Cub. I like their offense a lot, this could just be me not knowing enough, but behind Gray and Castillo, they traded away Archie Bradley, they traded away Rafael Iglesias. Their pitching just isn't it for me. So I definitely think offensively, they're no joke at all, especially in the NL Central, which is, other than maybe that the Cardinals are a little weaker for in terms of offense. But third place, I could see it happening. Like I perhaps probably just internally shocked more than I wanted to show, but I definitely think that pitching wise, they just don't have enough for me to truly contend. And not that you were saying they were going to contend for the division, but yeah, their pitching for me is their biggest weakness. Shortstop is also a dark hole right now. So other than the thumpers there, Suarez, Winkler, I just don't see it.
And Lucas, though, if I could say this, and you'd make a great point about the pitching, but other than the Cardinals, who's got good pitching in the division, right? I mean, you say that about everybody. So while, yes, I feel like everybody's kind of got a weak pitching staff, I don't feel like anybody's really got a pitching staff that's going to be over the top. I mean, the Cardinals probably have the best out of everybody, but I don't think anybody in that division, you look at 1 through 5 or maybe 6 for that matter, and say that's a top of the line pitching rotation, 1 to 5.
Yeah, that's a good. Yeah.
To that point, guys, Michael Laurenson, he's previously been a reliever for the past 6 years or whatever. He made 21 starts back in 2015. Reportedly, he's going to be transitioning back to a starter this season. I don't know if that's out of necessity or if that's his desire to come back to being a starting pitcher or what, but it could be a little bit of both. Maybe they just need somebody to fill in as that 5th day starter. So we'll see what he has to offer.
Especially with no DH in the NL, that's basically like a 9th bat because he can hit with the best of them. So I think that him starting could be a improvement in just in the offensive end.
That could be a good point. The Pirates, they've pretty much sold off on anybody that was remotely decent on their squad. They no longer have Jamison Taillon. Let's see, who else did they get rid of this offseason? Josh Bell, yeah. They're big slugger, so they're not going to really have anything. How bad does it hurt to be a Pirates fan? Watching this team year in and year out, that's got to be a tough break. Every week it seems like we end up talking about one team that just has a disappointing season year after year. We talked about the Rockies in the NL West. We talked about the Orioles in the AL East. We got to talk about the Pirates here in the Central. What do you guys think?
I mean, I don't even understand how they have any fans left. How could you stand behind this team? Letting Josh Bell go was ridiculous. Granted, I get that they probably don't have the market to pay a player. They're probably a small market team. Nonetheless, if you're going to own a professional baseball team, why not try to make something of it instead of just perpetually be the worst team in the league? It's them and the Orioles for me are the worst. And I just don't understand why they would just continue to accept this terrible team that they've always had.
Yeah, and even when they were, close to success in this century, they run into Jake Arrieta, they run into the Reds the year before, they run into the Cardinals in 2013. Even when they try and be good, they're not good at it. So it's just pain for Pittsburgh for even in the good times, it's been pain for Pittsburgh.
You make such a great point. Pittsburgh is such a great sports town, right? I mean, the Steelers that is the team in that city, and people love it. And the Penguins have been successful. It's such a shame to see what the Pirates, who, if you look back on it, and you got to go really far back. I mean, this is a franchise that has achieved success back in the 70s. And obviously, the We Are Family team with Willie Stargell. And they had Roberto Clemente, who's one of the greatest players of all time. And then the short time when Barry Bonds was there, they were successful. But it is an absolute mess there. And it's a shame. Shout out to Derek Shelton, the manager, who went to the same college I went to. So shout out to Southern Illinois University there.
Oh, nice.
But the only one who went to SIU is in the majors. But I feel bad for him because he's got a lot on his plate that he's going to have to deal with for however long he's going to be there, because it's a no-win situation for sure for this year, and who knows how many more years to come.
At least they have a beautiful park. PNC is a wonderful place to watch a ball game.
It is. Yeah, I've been to all 5 NL Central, and taking out the Cubs and Cardinals because of my bias towards the Cardinals and against the Cubs, Pittsburgh's probably up there as one of the more beautiful ones for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's one of the nicest stadiums that I've ever personally been to, and I would definitely go back and watch a game there any day. I love the view of the cityscape whenever you're behind home plate, and you just get to look out and see the city of Pittsburgh out there. Ignoring the fact that it's Pittsburgh, it's a beautiful sight. So my final question for you guys, and I think we've kind of touched on it a little bit here and there, but who ultimately is going to win the National League Central?
I'm gonna go Cardinals. I think that they were the best team in the division, and then they got Nolan Arenado. That's how I look at it. I think that they were slight favorites, and now they're pretty big favorites. Bet Online, which is a sports betting website, has them at over under like 87.5 wins. I'm taking the over there. I think that their ceiling is probably 93. Like if everybody performs well, I'm probably sitting closer to 88, 90 wins for to win this division. And I think they have more than the capability to do that. I'm really high on this pitching staff. We hadn't really talked about it a lot just for because of Arenado and whatever, but I think this pitching staff has the opportunity to do really good things. And as good as this offense probably is on paper, pitching staff isn't necessarily good on paper, but I'm really excited and just seeing what they're doing in spring training. So I think the Cardinals are winning the NL Central pretty easily for the most part.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Lucas. Listen, this isn't a good division. So to Lucas's point, it wouldn't shock me to tell you the truth that the Cardinals won this division and won 87 games. It really wouldn't, because I think this division is the weakest division in the National League. And I think that ultimately, compared especially to the NL West and the NL East, I think we can all agree with that. But, the Cardinals top to bottom, offensively, they're solid everywhere. They have a good pitching staff. I think Jack Flaherty is going to be one of those guys we're going to talk about for the Cy Young this year. I think he's got a great shot. This is an up-and-comer. I certainly feel like he's going to make the All-Star team this year. This could be his breakout year for them. So for me, I'm going to go with the Cardinals. And I think, even though I don't think Nolan Arenado is going to put up the numbers that we saw in Colorado, I think he's going to fall back a little bit because he's not playing in Colorado every day. I still think he's going to, put up some solid numbers for this team. And with him and Goldschmidt on the corners, they're going to be a tough out this year.
Yeah. I agree with that about Nolan Arenado's numbers. I think the Colorado inflation is going to really show this season, and we'll see what the true Nolan can put up. But
I got one thing on that real quick, just for food for thought that
sure,
talked to with the Rockies guys. That a big part we see DJ LeMahieu not struggle. Obviously, you could say the Yankees part helps him a lot, but to the point of the Coors effect is, well, it's almost helpful to get out of Colorado. You're not adjusting to the altitude pretty much every week. So it's a less toll physically. And I'm not saying you're wrong. I do think there is a good chance of him stepping a little bit back, but just food for thought to not be shocked if he still does put up those all-star numbers. Just food.
Yeah. And I still think he will be an all-star, Lucas. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not taking anything away. I just think we see those inflated numbers in Colorado every year. I just feel like it's just going to be maybe a step below that,
That's fair. Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's going to go from a 30 home run guy to a 10 home run guy. But I do think that's where we're going to see the regression. He'll still hit for average. He'll still get on base, but I think we're going to see the home runs drop a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. But yeah, I do think he'll be all-star caliber guy. And of course the glove is going to play everywhere. So fellas, I thank you so much for coming on. It's been great to talk to you guys, talk about baseball, talk about the National League Central. I do wish both of your teams the best of luck. I don't really have a dog in the fight, so whoever wins, I hope it's great. I hope, most importantly, health for all the players and everybody is able to stay healthy and we can see the best product out on the field. Lucas, go ahead and tell us again where we can find your show, where we can find you on social media and all that stuff. And then Ryan, you can do it after that.
Yeah, you can find the show anywhere you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, radio.com, anywhere. There, Locked On Cardinals, just search it. You should be able to find it. Twitter, the show's Twitter is LO_Cardinals. It's also the show's Instagram. And then I'm on Twitter at LJ Fastball.
And our show is The Friendly Confines. It's Chicago Cubs podcast. And you can find us also on all podcast platforms. We produce once a week. You can find me on Twitter at Ryan D. Lieber and check out our new website. Actually, I should have mentioned that. It's www.theconfines.com. You can also find our podcast on the website and our Facebook page. It's the Chicago Cubs Friendly Confines. We'd love to have you join in to the discussion, and we post everything on there as well. And I appreciate you guys having me on, and I'd love to have you guys all on my podcast down the line, especially when the Red Sox play the Cubs or when the Cardinals play the Cubs.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just let us know. We're all linked up on Twitter and all that stuff now, and I'm loving that our community of baseball fans just keeps growing little by little. Every week, it's like, oh, a few more fans are on here now. So, all right, I appreciate you guys so much. Thanks for your knowledge and for coming on here and talking with us. Have a good night. All right, Zach, you missed out on a good portion of the conversation, but we did touch on all of the NL Central. you'll enjoy going back and listening to that on the playback whenever you're listening tomorrow at work or whatever. But do you have anything else you want to add about the NL Central before we move on?
Yeah. It seems kind of cut and dry on paper, but I think there could be some room for some teams to kind of do some stuff. It literally all depends on what gets going and what player gets hot when. The Brewers might not have the great pitching staff, and who knows what they're going to be able to do, but they've decided to go all in on defense, and they picked up Colton Wong, who is a multi-time Gold Glover. They brought back Lorenzo Cain, who is obviously a good center fielder, Christian Yelich, no doubt. And I think they're going to try to at least compete. I think they could potentially make that number 3 spot in the NL Central over the Reds. And I think the Cubs could make it interesting too. They've kind of offloaded a lot of their good players, but they still have Javi Baez. They still have David Ross, who it seems to be a pretty good manager, all things considered. They still have Kyle Hendricks as a starting pitcher. They have some weapons, and I think they can play a good game. But they're not the 2016 World Series champs that we knew from that year. I don't think this is a cakewalk necessarily for the Cardinals. I do agree that they could win the division in about 85 games or so. But then what? Sure, you might win the division and get to the playoffs, but then what? Are you going to get beaten by the Padres again? I don't know. We'll have to see, because it's not just about getting to the playoffs. It's about, we got to get to a World Series. This organization has a bit of a history of winning. I think apart from the Yankees, the Cardinals have the most World Series wins. And I wouldn't say that the fan base is expecting that, but there is we just can't be crappy and mediocre forever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I don't think you will be. I think, like the guy said, I think Cardinals are probably going to walk away with the NL Central. I have the Brewers finishing second. I think they've got the most competitive roster outside of the Cardinals in the division. And for me personally, I would love it if they were first and second placed in September, because that's when I'm going to be in Wisconsin, and it would be cool to get to see a pennant chase between the Brewers and the Cardinals there in Milwaukee. So that would be awesome to get to go and see.
Yep.
But Zach, let's clear the bases a little bit. This is one of my favorite segments of our baseball season, is when we get to clear the bases and kind of run down the list and talk about some of the other sports that are still happening. Of course, most notably UFC 259. I don't know how much of that you got to see, but there were quite a few title fights going on in the UFC, and it was a pretty star-studded event. Of course, the one that a lot of people are talking about is Aljamain Sterling wins the bantamweight title via disqualification after an illegal knee by Peter Yan. Did you get to see that knee? Did you see the knee strike?
Yeah, that was rough. I mean, clearly Aljamain was down, and I don't know if Jan was just in the heat of the moment, whatever, just went for the kill. But I mean, that's clearly illegal. It sucks that that's the way that Aljamain got his title, but nonetheless, it is what it is at this point. He deserves it, I guess, but he didn't win clearly. But if you're going to do something that egregious, then I don't think you deserve to get a no contest or whatever. I think the right decision was made on that.
I would play the clip, but I'm pretty sure Dana White would pull it off the internet before we got a chance to. So I'm not going to do that and ruin our show. But I do think that it was, like you said, egregious. It was clearly illegal. But do you think we get a pretty much an immediate rematch?
Yeah.
I think we deserve that.
Yeah, I would assume that we'll have a rematch here in maybe 4 or 5 months or so, something like that.
Yeah, maybe Sterling's cobwebs will clear by then.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that really did hit him hard.
Yeah, he was out for a good 10 minutes or whatever, just laying on the ground. Amanda, the GOAT, did Amanda things. She went out there and she made short work of Megan Anderson, the reigning defending champ. Only got hit twice in the entire 2 minutes and 3 seconds it took to submit her. she's just on a whole nother level than any of these other women. And I don't think anybody's going to come close. She's going to retire champ.
Yeah. It's going to take a long time for someone to dethrone her. And I had high hopes for Megan Anderson. Obviously, Amanda is who she is, but I thought, oh man, this chick is tall. This chick can have the as much distance from Amanda as she wants if she can keep her, away with her big old legs and stuff. And clearly that was just not the case when it went to the ground. And when, I don't know if you saw, but Anderson got a little stunned and went for a double leg and just got wrapped up by a jiu-jitsu black belt and got made to look like a complete idiot on the ground.
For as good as Amanda is on her feet, she's even better on the ground. And that's scary because she's probably one of the best strikers in the entire division. And oh, by the way, she's probably the best on the ground in the entire division. So good luck.
Yeah. And I think that's a huge key to her success. She is a tried and true mixed martial artist. She's got basically all of her bases covered. And I think that's a rarity in the women's division at this point. Of course, Ronda was the reigning champ for a long time, and she had her arm bar and stuff like that. And I think a lot of women are kind of sure they're trying a lot of stuff, but you're either like a jiu-jitsu or a striker. And it seems to be pretty difficult for the women's division to kind of meld the two. And Amanda has done that for years now. And like you said, she's absolutely going to retire the champ. And I feel bad for anyone who has to go up against her because it hasn't been good for literally anybody in, I don't know 5 years or more.
Yeah, I think it's a 5-year win streak. If she does happen to lose one of those belts, it'll be because she somehow gets knocked out or whatever with a flash shot. But I think she could be one of the only person, not one of the only person to retire as a champ.
Yeah.
So, Jan Blachowicz hands Izzy his first professional loss as he tried to become a champ. Where does Izzy go from here? He was talking a lot of noise about wanting to fight John Jones and all this stuff. John pretty much played it off like, yeah, that's not worth my time anymore. Izzy just kind of crawl back to where he came from?
I think so. I think, and we've said it before when fighters have gone up a weight class and just been destroyed. And it's harder than people think. If you can make 185, those guys that are making 205 could never do that. And it's just a huge difference. Stylebender is a immensely talented fighter, and he's a huge superstar, but not at 205. It's just a different thing. You know what I mean? You can't just move up a weight class and not cut and compete the same way. It's you're fighting guys that are way bigger than you. And it sucks because I think a John Jones fight would have been amazing to see who really is the GOAT. And I don't know if it'll happen now, especially if John finds success at heavyweight.
Yeah, there's no way, especially like you said, if John is able to even compete with Stipe, there's no chance that we see that fight. But moving on, No Love is on the no-fly list now after his most recent debacle. Did you happen to see Cody Garbrandt getting kicked off of a plane because the flight attendant was trying to make him put a mask on his 2-year-old son?
Yes.
And Cody didn't want anything to do with it. He even busted into the cockpit to prove that the pilots weren't wearing masks. And he made a huge scene. And No Love is not going to get any love from any airlines anymore, at least. So we'll see.
I was with him up until he started his own antics. Making a 2-year-old try to wear a mask is ridiculous, in my opinion.
I agree.
But he had to go and be the idiot and make things worse. You're not going to win any battles by breaking into the cockpit and making an ass of yourself. And I think he ran after the flight attendant or something like that, and something ridiculous.
Chased him into a bathroom.
Like that is not going to win you any battles here. I was on his side for the child thing, but after that, it's like, come on, man. Like, that's stupid.
The NBA All-Star Weekend just happened. Did you watch any of it?
I did not.
So normally the NBA All-Star Weekend takes up the entire weekend, and they have events going all the time. They have the slam dunk contest, the 3-point shootout, the game itself, all this, and it's all a lot of fun. It's usually, very star-studded and all that. Of course, with COVID restrictions and all that stuff, it was kind of dialed back to the point to where it was not even really worth watching. They had the 3-point competition right before the All-Star game. And then the slam dunk competition was just a 3-person competition at halftime of the All-Star game. Not really worth watching. The All-Star games for themselves are worthless anyway. The final score was Team LeBron 170 versus Team Durant 150. So you're not even getting any kind of competitive basketball. You're just getting a glorified practice
round. Yeah. But people are just shooting the ball and no one's trying to defend.
Yeah. The most important thing from the city of Atlanta this weekend was the staggering number of Instagram models that were found sleeping in their cars or in the backs of U-Hauls, hoping to get a phone call to come up to a player's room. The chief of police said that they busted a lot of Instagram models that were just loitering around the arenas.
That's hilarious.
So I guess that's at least something, good for them. The Cowboys are on a deadline to put Dak Prescott on the franchise tag. If they do not put him on the franchise tag, they have to reach a deal or he is walking in free agency. Ian Rappaport reported earlier that if the salary cap number wasn't reported today, then the deadline for franchise tag would have to be moved. I'm not sure if they put that out yet, but if not, the deadline is tomorrow.
Oh, wow.
So the Cowboys are on the clock to decide what they're going to do about Dak Prescott. If they do give him the franchise tag to play for 2021, they're going to have to pay him $37.7 million, which is a 20% jump from his 2020 salary. Currently, the Cowboys only have around $19 million in cap space. So if they give him the franchise tag, they're going to probably have to cut about 3 players just to accommodate Dak's salary. This is the problem you run into whenever you sign huge mega deals for too many people. And now they are in a bind to where they may not even get to keep their star quarterback.
Yeah. Yeah. It's such a strange thing. It's almost like Jerry Jones bet on Dak sucking. And that's why he gave Zeke a big contract and their wide receiver a big contract. And it's almost like they just oh yeah, he was a flash in the pan and we're going to move on and we're going to get another quarterback. And here Dak is with a great season last year before he got injured. I mean, he had more touchdowns in his 5 weeks of play than Cam Newton had the entire season. And
more passing yards.
Right. And who knows what he could have done if he was healthy. Now what are you going to do? Like you said, they've got to pay him one way or the other. Dak is getting money from the Cowboys or he's walking. And if you let him walk, what the hell are they going to do now? Because I don't think they're going to re-sign Andy Dalton. And then they have zero depth at quarterback after that.
I mean, even if they do sign Andy Dalton, is that your answer? You're paying all these other guys so that you can bring in a guy who's been decent in Cincinnati, but he's at the back end of his career. He's not really ever been a proven winner or a clutch quarterback in the league. So is that the guy that you're going to turn the ball over to in a fresh season when it's not like oh crap, now we have to put him in type situation? I don't think so. I don't think that's the move you make unless they're in on this, Deshaun Watson deal or a deal for Russell Wilson or something like that. I think they have to turn around and try to pay Dak or work out a contract with him or something, but you're going to end up cutting half of your defense to keep him.
Yeah. They basically screwed themselves. I don't know. That's the Cowboys for you, though, isn't it?
You got that right. But one thing is guaranteed about the Cowboys: their fans will be saying it's their year.
Absolutely. Yep. With or without Dak, it's going to be
their year. All right. You got anything else you want to throw in here, Zach?
No, I sucks that I missed the one episode about my team, but hey, whatever. We can talk about them whenever.
Yeah, life happens, and like Ryan said, we can always collab later on. We can go on his show. He can come back on our show. We can talk more sports with them. Those guys were really cool. I really appreciate Ryan and Lucas both for being on. Very cool dudes. Go check out their shows if you're in the market for either Cubs or Cardinals podcasts. Lucas goes on live every day for about 25 to 30 minutes, just updating about the latest Cardinals news. So that's pretty cool for you guys. And Ryan said that they're a once a week podcast. So they're kind of like us. They stockpile all the news and then try to give it to you in rapid fire.
Right.
I talked a little bit about during my open, Zach, about how I'm so excited that it's spring training, and
I love it.
And I've thoroughly enjoyed watching the Red Sox new young core get out there on the field, like seeing guys like Bobby Dahlbeck hitting homers, seeing Jaron Duran out there slapping doubles and homers, seeing Jeter Downs out there balling out. I've really enjoyed it. But like I said earlier, one of the things that I've enjoyed more than anything was seeing Eduardo Rodriguez make his return the other day.
Mm-hmm.
He had the myocarditis as a side effect of the COVID-19 diagnosis and all that stuff, and he came out there and he looked like he didn't miss a beat.
Yeah,
and that's great to see. So I'm super excited for him this season, and it gives me a lot more hope going forward that the Red Sox are going to be able to at least have something a little more competitive out there.
Yeah, I think we've been just absolutely itching for baseball, and this spring training has been great. I don't know if you've seen much of the Cardinal spring training, but Waino has just tore it up. I mean, he looks like he's in his prime. A relief pitcher who had a huge potential and then had some injuries. Alex Reyes rather looks really good. So yeah, super excited. Did you see the clip of Yachty throwing somebody out at second?
Yeah, we talked about it too with the guys.
That was insane.
Ryan, the Cubs fan, he lives near Jupiter, Florida, and he said that he was actually at the game, and he's like, I saw it in person.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Just the command that Yachty had, because he tried to pick him off, and then he was like, no, did the Montumbo finger wave. So Yachty was like, go ahead and try it, and he threw him out by like 7 feet. It was hilarious. And
it was by a mile. It was ridiculous.
I loved it. And it's so awesome to see those old guys just with all of the fire in the world, and they still have it and they still want to compete. It just gets you fired up.
Yeah, no, I'm ready. April 1st can't get here soon enough, but we still have a few more weeks of spring training and a few more weeks of breaking down different divisions. I believe next week we are talking about the NL East. Maybe I think we're jumping over to the NL East, and it'll be a good one because that's a pretty action-packed division right there. With the Braves, the Nationals, the Mets, they're all making big moves. Can't sleep on the Marlins. They might sneak up and shock a few people this year as well. So it'll be cool to talk about it. And oh, by the way, and Bryce Harper and the Phillies. So it's stacked. So we'll talk about that next week. And thanks everybody that's been listening and watching along. We appreciate that. Thanks to the two guys that we had on tonight. We really appreciate you guys. And we'll see you next week. Peace.